The historic peace summit for Gaza kicks off in the city of peace, Sharm El-Sheikh. The ceasefire in Gaza takes effect and detainee exchange starts. The enclave breathes a sigh of relief. While world leaders arrive to Sharm El-Sheikh to try to ensure a prisoner swap and truce turn into lasting peace and reconstruction, Egypt's pivotal role in supporting peace takes central stage. U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the Knesset and travels on to co-chair the summit with President Sisi. How will Egypt's mediation secure, guarantee an end to the occupation army's operations and allow Palestinians to live with dignity in peace? And how will Sharm El-Sheikh summit mobilize world leaders for Gaza's lasting peace and reconstruction? Welcome to this special coverage of Sharm El-Sheikh Peace Summit. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has welcomed the world leaders and heads of state arriving in Sharm El-Sheikh for the landmark Peace Summit. The conference, co-chaired by President Sisi and U.S. President Donald Trump, brings together representatives from more than 30 countries and international organizations to celebrate the signing of the Gaza ceasefire and advance a new phase of regional peace and stability. Convened at the Sharm El-Sheikh International Convention Center, the summit underscores Egypt's renewed leadership in reviving the Middle East peace process and uniting key stakeholders around a lasting vision for security and cooperation. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi awarded the U.S. President Donald Trump the Nile Collar. This comes in recognition of his outstanding contributions to peace, conflict resolution, and particularly his pivotal role in ending the war in Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump has hailed a historic day, celebrating the return of 20 Israeli detainees from Gaza and the broader advancement of peace in the region. Addressing the Knesset, he expressed gratitude to U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff and allied nations for their coordination. Trump emphasized that this moment marks not only the end of conflict, but the dawn of a new Middle East era, citing accomplishments in halting wars, neutralizing nuclear threats, dismantling dangerous weapons, and strengthening Israel's security. He reaffirmed hope for lasting peace. Palestinian detainees released from Israeli prisoners have arrived in Gaza and the West Bank. As part of the agreement, Israel released 250 long-term Palestinian detainees and 1,700 detainees from Gaza, following Hamas's release of the last 20 surviving Israeli detainees earlier in the day. The freed Palestinians, some visibly weakened and with shaved heads, were welcomed in both the Gaza Strip and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. The Hamas movement has handed over all 20 remaining living detainees it was holding to Israel as part of the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army announced it had received the last 13 detainees after an earlier group of 7 had arrived, an announcement that sparked cheers, hugs, and tears among the thousands gathered at the hostages' square in Tel Aviv. And for more analysis, we are joined from Egypt by Mr. Mohammed Osman, the International Relations Specialist. And welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me, Salma.
Mr. Osman, after President al-Sisi invited more than 30 world leaders to Sharm El-Sheikh to chair a Gaza summit, Egypt framed the meeting as a bid to end the war and oversee reconstruction. How do you view the strong Egyptian diplomacy now in shaping a comprehensive peace plan for Gaza and the Middle East?
Once again, thank you for having me, Salma. I think Egypt is pushing forward the agenda of peace in the region, just as it always did over the past 3 decades, in different contexts, of course, and in different circumstances. Yet what remains a stable factor that never changes is that Egypt has always been an advocate and also a champion of peace in the region. And of course, since the war in Gaza is the worst episode of war that the Palestinians have witnessed since 1948, if anything, this war is even worse in its humanitarian and human toll and even regional ramifications than the war in 1948, the Nakba, as it came to be known afterwards. Mm-hmm. So the war in Gaza, of course, it deserves to be sealed and ended by a peace conference as large and significant as the one being held in Sharm El-Sheikh. And as usual, Egypt is playing a central role in the organization and the implementation, even, of course, the organization of the conference, the formulation of the agreement itself, which was signed in Sharm El-Sheikh, and also its implementation, Egypt will play a very pivotal part in. And Egypt, of course, has a very ambitious vision. It hopes that the momentum that has been created by the Sharm El-Sheikh agreement and the ceasefire in Gaza and the successful implementation so far of the first phase of the Trump plan and the Sharm El-Sheikh agreement in Gaza will pave the way definitely for the full implementation of the agreement and maybe even restarting the Palestinian-Israeli peace process somewhere down the line, bearing in mind that this process has been stagnant and frozen since 2014. 11 years it has been inactive.
Mr. Osman, Trump has vowed this morning on his way to Israel that the war has ended and that he thinks the deal will stand. How do you read that?
I think that President Trump is very eager to deliver the message that the war has ended. And I think that he was provoked into repeating this repeatedly because of the usual irresponsible statements of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu just yesterday. Netanyahu insisted that the war did not end and that the campaign will go on and that Israel's adversaries are regrouping and rearming. Therefore, they have to restart hostilities at some point and that the war is not over. Of course, President Trump was asked on Air Force One on his way to the Middle East. About Mr. Netanyahu's statements, he spoke to the reporter who asked him the question in a very aggressive manner, very Trump-like, and told her the war has ended. And he repeated the word twice and told her, do you understand? So it seems that he was delivering the message. And he repeated the same words once again in the presence of Netanyahu in Jerusalem when he was signing the welcome book in the Knesset, I think. So it seems that Trump is insisting that this war has ended, and he's telling Prime Minister Netanyahu that you need to stick to the agreement that is being implemented at the moment. However, also at the same time, of course, President Trump and the Knesset conveyed very negative messages with regards to Palestinian rights and the role of Prime Minister Netanyahu and the behavior of Israel, endorsing basically every criminal deed Israel has implemented or undertaken over the past 2 years. Yet at the same time, I do believe that the United States is committed to maintaining the ceasefire, and this is what matters. And I hope that this U.S. involvement and insistence on the maintenance of the ceasefire and the implementation of the agreement persists.
We are now joined from Jenin by Mr. Nouman Tawfiq El-Abid, a writer and political analyst. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us here today at our special coverage. Mr. Abid, how do you view Egypt's role as the host of this historic peace summit in Sharm El-Sheikh? Mr. Nouman, are you with me? Can you hear me? Do you want me to repeat the question? Mr. Abid, how do you view Egypt's role as the host of this historic peace summit in Sharm El-Sheikh? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for having me. The Egyptian leadership and Egyptian government from the start of our Palestinian people was able to face all Netanyahu's plans through calling for a ceasefire and stopping the genocide on the Palestinian people, and then delivering humanitarian aid that we all saw that being here in we saw how much aid the Egyptian government sent through the Rafah corridor after the occupation forces took over the Rafah crossing and closed it completely, and then also facing the displacement plans that were or was in the ideology and policies of this government, and then also a political resolution for this plan. We know that the plans of this extremist government, we know that they are trying to settle the Palestinian cause, and then the other path here, or the other country here that was trying to stop all of these plans was Egypt. They tried to have an urgent summit through supporting having a committee and talking about the next day in the Gaza Strip, and then also talking about stopping the aggressions and ending the forced displacement, and then the Egyptian diplomacy in their policies that they had domestically and internationally. Also the Egyptian government as a whole, they tried to convince all the countries around the world, especially the European countries, to stop or to change their stances on how they view the Palestinian cause, and then they were able to have a breakthrough with the European stances. And here I'm saying this is a very crucial moment in the peace city in Sharm El-Sheikh in the Egyptian Republic through this summit, through which maybe we will have maybe the same thing the same situation will stay after, because this is they are discussing peace, and peace will come through stopping the genocide and the war against the Palestinians, and then also having a two-state solution and recognizing a Palestinian statehood. And so this is very important, and the attendance here is very important with everyone in Sharm El-Sheikh.
Let me ask the next question to Mr. El-Abed again, because he just joined us. Mr. El-Abed, President Trump vowed the agreement will stand, but some issues still remain unresolved, like disarmament. What are the most likely triggers for the collapse of the ceasefire, do you think? Mr. Abed, are you there? I want to ask you the next question because you just joined us. President Trump vowed that the agreement will stand, but some issues still remain unresolved, like disarmament, for example. What do you think are the most likely triggers for the collapse, maybe, of the ceasefire, do you think?
According to the plan that was proposed by President Donald Trump, it is a plan that has lots of phases and points, and it is full of clarity and the negotiation with everything that it includes, especially after phase one. Maybe through your screen here, I said that that phase one is the easiest in this. In this process, which is delivering the humanitarian aid, but then the upcoming phases with the plans, we want sustainable peace, which will be in the upcoming phases. And so, the Palestinian arming will be discussed through the Palestinian government and groups with the Arab countries, especially Egypt, and then also this negotiation needs to lead to a full resolution of the Palestinian cause. We cannot discuss the Palestinian arms with the occupation forces and Netanyahu still being in, or still saying things that like having the war back and reoccupying the Gaza Strip and destroying the corridors and tunnels in the Strip, and this agreement is supposed to end such a thing. And so if they are really serious about sustainable and long-lasting peace, then everything needs to be discussed, ending the occupation, disarmament, the transitional government, and everything.
Reconstruction, everything. Yes. Okay. Mr. Osman, we're back to you again. Trump seems now more flexible than he was before. Like, for example, when asked about the board of peace, he seemed more likely to accept negotiations and amendments on his original 20-point plan. Do you agree? What are your thoughts about this?
Sources did suggest, even before Trump's statements, that he might be more flexible with regards to revisiting certain provisions of the agreement. Namely, of course, especially the provision or the clause pertaining to the post-war governance of Gaza. President Trump understands that the Arab and Islamic nations, and of course on their head Egypt, are not comfortable with the idea of placing Gaza under some sort of international trusteeship or a board of peace, which is basically very reminiscent of post-World War I European mandate system, colonialism, basically, in a new dress, or a new, or basically, yes, in a new dress. So it seems that he understood that, and it seems that he is more open to visiting the idea or exploring the idea of a Palestinian governance of the Gaza Strip through some sort of technocratic committee, which of course will have its reference point to the Palestinian Authority, or even or basically turning the Gaza Strip back to a reformed Palestinian Authority at some point. All of these ideas are being pushed forward by the Egyptians and the Palestinian side. Of course, in return, Hamas will be out of the picture and they will have to relinquish power. And Hamas has already expressed its willingness to relinquish power. So I think that these indicators are true, and I think that President Trump is serious about this. However, the problem or the issue of the disarmament of Hamas, I think he will be much less flexible on this subject matter than on other subjects, and I think this could be a very dangerous sticking point moving ahead to the second stage.
Yes. Mr. El-Abed, Trump says he intends to be a partner in Gaza's reconstruction efforts. How do you, sir, envision the U.S. role regarding the reconstruction of Gaza?
Let's be clear and honest here. The occupation, the Israeli occupation country, and also the USA, they have to pay for everything for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, because they were the ones who destroyed it in the first place with the occupations and the brutalities that they did. And with the support of the US president that has said not a long while ago that he supported the occupation country with arms and everything, and these arms were what destroyed the strip. And so the US president saying that he will contribute to reconstructing the Gaza Strip, this is not some favor they're doing. They weren't the ones who destroyed the Gaza Strip, and the Israeli occupation country are the ones responsible to pay and help with the reconstruction. But the real reconstruction that we will really see will be through the Palestinian people and our Arab brothers, especially Egypt, that is the closest politically, socially and geographically to the Gaza Strip. And so this reconstruction is supposed to be between the Palestinians and the Arab countries, but the Israeli occupation country has to pay for it, actually, and the US too, and the country, and especially the European countries and the Arab countries cannot be paying or cleaning up the mess that the occupation country and the US have done as a consequences of the wars that they are having against the countries in the region. Anyone who has the wars or the genocide who does them, they need to take responsibility and pay for the reconstruction and reconstruct this themselves. And so this cannot be through the Arab countries alone.
Yes. Mr. Osman, I was just asking Mr. El-Abed a question regarding the reconstruction of Gaza, and I'm still staying at the same topic. Now, several European and regional leaders are attending Sharm El-Sheikh to endorse an international framework for Gaza reconstruction. Can you share with us a little bit, how do you think the issue of reconstruction of Gaza will be navigated in this summit?
I think that the idea and the plans of reconstruction will basically take place. The discussions will be within the framework of the Egyptian reconstruction plan that was endorsed and adopted by the League of Arab States and the Islamic Organization for Cooperation, and then supported by the international community at large, the UN, the European Union, the Global South, China, Russia, Japan. Everyone supported the Egyptian reconstruction plan as a way to move forward with the post-war reconstruction and early rehabilitation of Gaza. So there is something to work with here. And I think since Egypt is the one hosting this summit at the moment, the landmark peace conference, I think that the Egyptian reconstruction plan will be back on the agenda, maybe with some modifications that would suit the Trump peace plan for Gaza. However, I do believe it will be the main framework, because it was a plan that was formulated on a very scientific basis, and Egypt knows more than anyone else the actual damages that happened in Gaza and the need of the Gaza Strip due to the realities of history and geography, Selma.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. El-Abed, Trump says, that's his statement according to him, I'm quoting, "This is not only the end of a war, but the dawn of a new Middle East," unquote. How do you read the statement?
Honestly, what U.S. President Donald Trump said in the Israeli Knesset is not really isn't really positive or encouraging, because what they were talking about are the policies of Netanyahu, and he kept on praising Netanyahu and his government's policy, which is the reason that we have all this destruction in the Middle East. And so we were expecting, or we're hoping, that with this agreement that the U.S. President Donald Trump will really talk about the truth and what's really happening, and not just support Netanyahu or praise what he has achieved so far with his government, with the atrocities and the offense against Palestine. And so the real peace and the agreement will not really will not be for real until they say things for what they are, and say that recognize the Palestinians' rights to and want to have a sovereign state on the borders of 1967. And so peace will not happen until the Palestinians can feel like their legitimate rights, according to the international laws, are actually given to them, like ending the occupation, forces withdrawal, stopping the settlements, and recognizing a Palestinian statehood, and then also reconstructing it. And so what Trump said about a new Middle East, this new Middle East, Trump is still looking at, like him and also Netanyahu, Ben Gvir and Smotrich. We will not have a safe Middle East or a peaceful Middle East like Trump thinks, or Netanyahu, who said that peace can be taken through force. Peace comes through giving the rights back to its owners, and so we cannot have peace alongside occupation, or alongside not having a sovereign Palestinian state on the borders of the 1967. We cannot have peace while Palestinians are being detained. We cannot have peace with the displacement and the genocide. We will not reach real peace unless there is real and legitimate willingness from the occupation forces and the U.S. To stop everything that they're doing with their arms and with the wars. We will not reach peace unless the Palestinian people can get what they want and what they deserve and their legitimate rights. And everything that they've been calling for, alongside with the Arab leaders and all the countries around the world that have recognized a Palestinian statehood and are calling for a two-state solution. And so why do we have all these recognitions and protests that call for a two-state solution when Trump is trying to force peace and force it according to the Israeli vision? And so we will not have peace or safety for the occupation country or the countries in the region.
Mr. Osman, President Sisi has awarded President Trump Egypt's Nile collar for his role in the deal. If you can talk to us a little bit, how do you see such symbolic gestures affecting the legitimacy and diplomacy of mediation?
Well, Salma, the Order of the Nile is Egypt's highest order that the Egyptian state or the Egyptian head of state gives to another person, an individual, whether that being another head of state or an Egyptian national or a foreign national. And of course, it has to be someone of note. The Order of the Nile, it's very old. It's over 100 years old. It was actually formulated by Sultan Hussein Kamel in 1915. So it's a very prestigious award, the highest award
in Egypt.
by the Egyptian state. So of course it carries great symbolism when it is presented to someone like President Trump, who loves trinkets and loves being awarded and given presents all the time, and being recognized as the greatest leader and head of state in the history of the universe, not only in the history of mankind. So I think that this is something that will serve to further his commitment to applying pressure on the Israelis and committing to this agreement. Especially, of course, he's feeling very sore about not winning the Nobel Peace Prize a few days ago, even though the Nobel Peace Prize has lost all value and meaning over the past few decades. But this is another subject for another episode, I guess. So now I think that Egypt is awarding him its highest award in an effort to secure his perpetual commitment to the applying of this agreement. So I think it is a positive step by Egypt, a very good initiative, and it's a very good initiative to reward President Trump for his change of heart and for his readjustment of U.S. policy to make it more balanced, at least with regards to what's going on in Gaza and the Middle East. Of course, it is not fair still. It has not reached a point where it treats the Palestinians and the Arabs fairly. However, we are in a much better position now than we were, and at least it is now leading to peace and putting an end to the war. Hello?
Mr. Osman and Mr. Labid, please do still stay with us. We are now watching the release of the detainees in Qnews. Almost 1,900 detainees released from Israel, Palestinians, and around 20 from Palestine, Israeli detainees. Palestinian detainees are now released from the Israeli prisons. They have arrived in Gaza and the West Bank. As part of the agreement, and Israel released 250 long-term Palestinian detainees and 1,700 detainees from Gaza following Hamas's release of the last 20 surviving Israeli detainees earlier in the day. U.S. President Trump's Air Force has arrived now in Sharm El-Sheikh, just now, literally landing at the Sharm El-Sheikh International Airport. As we can see live on the screen, U.S. President Trump, he is just arriving to the Red Sea resort city of Sharm El-Sheikh to attend the landmark Peace Summit co-chaired with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. And his arrival marks a pivotal moment in international diplomacy as the world leaders gather to celebrate the Gaza ceasefire and launch plans for reconstruction and long-term stability. We move to a live broadcast from Sharm El-Sheikh, where U.S. President has just arrived. And as we can see live on the screen, the U.S. President Donald Trump arrives in Egypt's Red Sea resort city of Sharm El-Sheikh to attend the landmark Peace Summit, co-chaired with the Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has welcomed world leaders and heads of state arriving in Sharm El-Sheikh for the landmark Peace Summit. The conference, co-chaired by President el-Sisi and U.S. President Donald Trump, brings together representatives from more than 30 countries and international organizations to celebrate the signing of the Gaza ceasefire and advance a new phase of regional peace and stability. Convened at the Sharm El-Sheikh International Convention Center, the summit underscores Egypt's renewed leadership in reviving the Middle East peace process and uniting key stakeholders around a lasting vision for security and cooperation. And that was Mr. Mohammed Osman, who was just with us earlier, the International Relations Specialist, and Mr. Nouman Tawfiq El-Abed, the writer and political analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your insights today and joining me here. And in the City of Peace, Sharm El-Sheikh hosting the Gaza Peace Summit with the attendance of Trump to consolidate lasting peace in Gaza that was devastated by the 2-year Israeli war on the Strip. Now, after the mediation of Egypt, Qatar and the US, Palestinians in Gaza will finally sleep in peace. And this brings us to the end of our special coverage for this hour. Do stay with us for the continuous coverage of the summit at Sharm El-Sheikh, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.